easily overlooked by the headlines, but it leaves its scars all the same.
Everybody has their
This isn't some twisted
outside,
competition of who suffered
destroyed.
more.
Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to watch Hurricane Helene's devastation in Florida. So we have seen, I've read about this Hurricane Helene and I was like, oh, the devastation is, I think so, too much. But I thought it is America, so they might be able to cope up with it. But then there were some photos and those looked very disastrous. So let's see what happened actually in America and what is happening in Florida. So let's get into the
video.
Oh my god!
It's easy to get caught up in the spectacle, the wind.
It's
the
like they're in
wreckage,
the sea.
Waves, the
Oh,
raw power of a
crazy.
storm like Hurricane Helene. But when all we see is destruction,
God, the
I
destruction.
mean, these are all just family photos.
we miss the real story.
My grandfather, my grandparents, her. These are all black and white photos.
The quiet devastation, the lives turned upside down in an instant, the ones who don't make the headlines.
I mean, you can see how high the water line was. It was coming in.
Water
all
was still
outside my
there.
house, all the doors. My poor dog and I were laying in bed listening to it just pour in.
That's the small picture.
And I was okay with just throwing it out when it was just wet pieces of paper. Now that I look at it all and think about it and tell a story. it's
Everything destroyed.
like, ouch.
I'm going to stop some of you right
Oh.
now. I know what you're seeing
Oh
here
my
from
God,
Florida
look
after
at
Hurricane
this.
Helene makes some of you shrug after you've seen the devastation that's hundreds of miles to the north in the Carolinas and Tennessee. In Florida, the devastation doesn't scream.
Oh my
It
God.
simmers. It's quieter, easily overlooked by the headlines, but it leaves its scars all the
See,
same.
everybody has their
This isn't some
products
twisted
outside,
competition of who
destroyed.
suffered more. The destruction on St. Pete Beach is just as real and as painful as the wreckage in the Carolinas.
God should help them.
The storm didn't discriminate. It
This is
didn't care
crazy.
where it hit or who or how it hurt.
One thing we have to remember, pain
See?
doesn't have to compete.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
there was catastrophic damage in the mountains of Carolinas and Tennessee, but there were suffocating floodwaters here in Tampa Bay, and the suffering's the same. Yeah, this home is still standing, but many homes in this neighborhood alone are going to be torn down because
Water.
homes like this just can't exist here anymore. It's not sustainable, not after so many storms and so many floods in such a short amount of time.
It's tough to claim 12
Oh,
dead and
see our
20,000
house.
homes and businesses wrecked in one of the country's biggest media markets are overlooked, but that just shows you how brutal Helene has been elsewhere. Still, I'm here. This is my home. And these are some of the stories from the worst storm to hit Tampa Bay
Oh, it's
in the century.
terrible to
Hurricane
live
was
in
100
Cars are
miles
gone.
west of us.
Everything's
I
gone.
wouldn't have bet $1 million this storm surge was going to happen. We get hurricanes, a couple times a year. Never thought this, this devastation
Crazy.
would happen
There's
here.
just
But
dry up them.
6:04, it
It's
started
so
coming
wet.
up over the wall. At 6:40, it was probably halfway up my leg in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh, and the high tide hadn't even started. It was at low tide and the water was coming over the wall. So 6:55, I left. The road was completely covered. This whole road was completely covered. There was already a
It does not
car
look like
broke
there
down
would
in
be
the
so
middle
much
of the
flood
road
here, but
because it flooded
it
out.
was.
So I hopped the curb, rode the
Crazy.
curb all the way down. I was probably the second or the last car to get off the island before that surge hit.
last car, so lucky.
So one thing to consider as you see car after car getting towed away from the beaches here in Pinellas County, all these cars that are sitting underneath the apartment buildings where many people stayed because they are obviously elevated, they're totaled. They were under several feet of water themselves, and so many people who stayed said cars were floating.
Bam! It just
Cars are
flooded this
floating.
whole place. It felt like we were in the ocean. I mean, I was standing on my balcony
dangerous.
watching, and I'm like, I'm out at sea. There's waves everywhere. And then we watched the boats come floating across.
Boats floating across an entire parking lot, ending up against this row
Oh,
of
so the
homes
boats were on the beach.
that are
We
right
are
along the
here.
causeway as
After
you make
how
your way
many
here
days, like-
to Treasure Island.
After 2-3 days, I think so.
Yeah.
Let's just
Oh.
but you can see how
God. You don't understand from where to start.
Actually,
It's good 3 feet
Yeah.
or so of water in here. Had you ever had water inside
Never.
in 19 years?
Whole
No,
shop
no,
is
and it's a
gone.
sturdy building.
from 19 years, never.
See the
Yeah.
water line on the chair here.
And I have a feeling nothing's gonna work either, as far as.
It'll
the
start
wires.
rusting.
Yeah, I unplugged everything today, just to make sure when the electric goes on that it's,
Yeah. Along the beaches here in Tampa Bay, Hurricane Helene acted in a way sort of like a blizzard. You can see just how many feet of sand was carried in with the record storm surge. Now it's piled up as people have to dig out. And an area that is always welcoming to guests, at this point,
Residents
they're
only.
so overwhelmed. They're trying to recover what they have left.
Locals
And
only.
everybody else, they're saying, please
They're like
stay
no
away. The
tourists.
beaches
Yeah.
aren't open for business.
Our attention spans are
Rotary
small
shoot.
and our memories short, but how can you forget Tropical Storm Ada in 2020?
My gosh.
Oh no.
You're stuck?
Oh,
Or
she was
Hurricane
stuck
Idalia
there.
just last August. Hurricane Helene swept in storm surge 3 to 4 feet above Idalia's storm
Scary,
surge.
man.
The result, the costliest storm in generations.
I'm stunned by the water line here.
The costliest storm in generations. You could see the effect of it, because I remember like in 2008 in my city also there was a big flood. Not a storm flood, but yes, a flood because of rain. And because of that, a lot of damage had happened, and there was a lot of issues. So then till from then to now we did not have any other one. But if tomorrow is there a storm and then something like this happens, would be crazy, because seeing that, like, the whole area looked so nice, like everything looked so beautiful and everything. But suddenly there is a storm, and like he was telling, like in 6-5 there was nothing, and till 7 p.m. it was just flooded. So you just get 1 hour to get out, and 1 hour is nothing. You just prepare and you just get out, and people's houses have become so bad. Their phone stuff has gone very
Honestly,
hard.
I was thinking the same about the flood that came in our city, because like we had the camera, so I was very little at that time. So I do have seen the pictures, like, you know, the whole house was dirty and everything is spoiled, and the furniture and everything is floating, and people and even the animals, the most important animals, were like cows, and you know, the dogs were on our terrace. So it was terrible time, like people were like crying at the same time. Those who don't have the floors, they were like, where to go, no shelter, nothing at all. So I can imagine that situation, like how it's tough to deal with such things, honestly.
Actually, so I would expect God to help them, and like the government to help them. So what do you guys think about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.